You know, I'd had a break like a lot of people had during the pandemic, and going back to it after like 2 years off, and was like, I'm scared of everyone's gonna, people heckling me again, people on their phones, people not really laughing at me and just sitting there in silence, people, talking to their friends while I'm on. I know I always react badly to that, and I was really worried about going back to stand-up because of that, but I did want to do it. So I was like, if I do it again, I kind of have to sort this problem out. Otherwise, it's just gonna be quite a miserable career, which just doesn't make sense. It's something that should be fun and that I'm passionate about and that I love. So I was like, let's just do a show where they're allowed to do all those things.
James Acaster here, reporting for the best evening of his life. Before we begin, here are the house rules. James Acaster cannot get annoyed at the audience if they heckle, talk amongst themselves, go on their phones, or are quieter than he would like.
You're promoting a special right now. Hecklers welcome.
Yeah, it's a show with stories from my life and childhood and specifically about my relationship with the audience through stand-up and how I've struggled with that sometimes. But the audience are allowed to do whatever they like. They're told at the top of the show, normal rules don't apply, they can behave however they like. They don't have to heckle. It's not, this is the show where you have to heckle me. But if you do, you're not going to get in trouble for it. So that was the idea from the outset. Let's see what happens if I do this.
Even though he spent his entire career trying to meticulously control every single detail in every single show he's ever done, James Acaster has to accept whatever happens. Look, if you haven't enjoyed the show tonight, please take some consolation in the fact it used to be a lot worse.
A particular type of person who decides to heckle a comedian. And I feel like most people in the audience probably would not take that opportunity. Were there shows where nobody heckled?
Yeah, loads of shows where nobody heckled, loads of shows when it was wall-to-wall heckling, shows when it was just one person and everyone wanting that person to shut up. But they always happen anyway. So I found that it was pretty much what I always experienced, but my reaction was different, which is what I was trying to change. I don't know, the only thing I'd be interested in is whether the people who heckled were the same people who would have heckled anyway. Because I got the same amount of heckles, but because they were allowed, I don't know if I spoilt the fun for some people who would have heckled normally, so they went, oh, I'm not going to bother. But then other people who would never heckle because it's against the rules were like, oh, we can do that, let's try it out, because thinking that might be what I wanted, I went to Sweden early on in the tour, and they usually never heckle because they want to obey the rules of the show. But then when they were like, oh, the rules of this one are we're allowed to, if he wants that, we should do it. So then they were trying to heckle, having never heckled before in their lives, even as a nation. So very much trying to learn how to heckle in real time, which was entertaining to watch them mainly just pick me up on things that they thought I'd got wrong. It was mainly them putting their hand up and going, yeah, you said that earlier, but now you've just said that, so it doesn't make sense.
So it was logical heckling?
Yeah, and you're like, oh, that's because it was a joke. But I get what you mean, and and you got the impression they were trying to serve the show and give me the thing that I was after. So I don't know how often that happened, of the heckler being someone who would never heckle, who is now trying to help the show, and someone who would usually heckle, just going, well, what's the point if he's okay with it,
Would you like a heckle from up here?
I would like the most polite person in the world to do it, absolutely.
You say in an interview that doing this was kind of it was
Immersion therapy.
Immersion therapy.
Yeah, going into it, yeah, that was the intention. Here's everything that I'm scared about. Getting ready to do comedy again. I'd had a break like a lot of people had during the pandemic, and going back to it after 2 years off, and was like, I'm scared of everyone's gonna, people heckling me again, people on their phones, people not really laughing at me and just sitting there in silence, people, talking to their friends while I'm on. I know I always react badly to that, and I'm scared that I'm going to go back, I'm going to feel like I'm rubbish on stage when they're doing that. I'm going to feel like I'm a shit comedian, and that's why they're talking, or that's why they're on their phones, and I'm going to act out, and I'll just repeat all the same mistakes again. And I was really worried about going back to stand-up because of that. And I knew I didn't have to at that point. I'm very lucky with the food podcast that I do with Ed Gamble. I was like, I could just do that now, and I don't really need to be constantly doing stand-up comedy, but I did want to do it. So I was like, if I do it again, I kind of have to sort this problem out. Otherwise, it's just going to be quite a miserable career, which just doesn't make sense. It's something that should be fun and that I'm passionate about and that I love. So I was like, let's just do a show where they're allowed to do all those things and you accept that that's going to happen. So rather than racking your brains trying to go, how can I get them to stop heckling me and how can I get them to not be on their phones? Because I've tried asking nicely every year and it doesn't work. I don't want to be putting my foot down going, put your phone in this bag and then we zip it up and nothing can get to it. And it just didn't feel like the kind of comedian I wanted to be. I don't judge comics who do that. So I thought if I let them do it, maybe that'll help. And I didn't know how it would help, but I was like, maybe that'll help me just accept it a bit more and deal with it and just face my fear of that. And by the end of the tour, I found that I am different on stage, that when they're doing things that I don't necessarily like, it doesn't get to me as much. I don't feel as insecure about it. I'm still not, the most secure comedian. I still think that I'm, that I could be way better and that, a lot of nights I'm like this. But I don't put it on them as much. I don't act out as much. I just come off and go, I wasn't as good, or that material still needs to be better, and I'll go away and do the work, as opposed to throwing a strop in front of them all and being like, why aren't you appreciating how fucking good this is? When the only reason I'm saying that is because in the back of my head I'm thinking this isn't good, and needing them to do the work for me, laugh so much that I believe this is good, rather than how I actually feel about the show or my own abilities. So definitely, it's not like all my insecurities have gone away, but the impulse to act out and to blame it on them and to throw my toys out the pram isn't there anymore when I'm on stage, and that's great.
And the way that this one was edited, which I loved, you had the drumming transitions, which to me made it feel so much more kinetic and almost jazzy. Mm-hmm. What was the intention behind that element?
Richard, what is wrong with you, mate?
Doing the show on stage, I was like, it felt, this is the heckling show where people can do whatever they like, and I'm just telling a series of stories. And I was like, that feels a bit non-chaotic to me, that I'm just doing a bunch of stories in a row. So I was like, can we get a drum kit on stage? Because I was enjoying playing the drums again, and because I was talking a lot about my inner child, I was like, can it be a kid's kit? I was just like, let's just have it there and see how often I go to it and mess around with stuff. And what I found was that I do it at the beginning and the end, but not really much in between the stories, because it would be quite clunky on stage. You get to the end of the story and then you walk behind the drum kit and you start playing. Or even if you tried to walk behind the drum kit as you were wrapping the story up, it feels weird to the audience. It's like, oh, okay, they see what's coming. So they're like, I guess this story's fading out now into this. So it just never felt good. But I knew that in an ideal world, I'd have these drums interrupting like Hecklers and feel like they're cutting in and out of stuff, and it makes it feel more chaotic, which is what I wanted the show to feel like. I kind of knew that I could do that in the edit of this one, but also, there's a number of so I knew that we were going to film the show for as long as we needed to on the night without an interval, because I wanted to get all of the material, but I also wanted to make sure we got some heckles, and I knew that I couldn't provoke that myself. I couldn't ask them, heckle me. So I was like, I'm going to not give them an interval, so that should tire them out. So they should heckle because of that, they're irritated. And I'll do it in the round, and hopefully that will encourage them, because I'll have my back to half of them at any one time and they'll feel a bit braver and heckle me, so hopefully that'll work. And I thought if I do all the drumming as they're walking in, that could get them a bit more riled up. And so there was that extra thing with the drumming, is as they're walking in and I'm playing the drums, maybe they'll discover during that it's maybe they shout out over the drums and I'm not going to destroy them and they get to see straight away. So it kind of helped in two ways, but I knew that we'd use those drums to cover our edit point, so we didn't have to make a 3-hour show, which is now 75 minutes, seem like one smooth show. I didn't want to do that. I didn't see the point in that, and it probably would be impossible anyway. So instead, to use these drum stings and just that's the end of that routine, and now we're into the next one, just meant that we didn't have to, worry about, well, I finished that routine and then 20 minutes later I started another one and we're cutting all of this stuff out, and I'm over here, doing this, and I'm suddenly somewhere else. So this made it easier to edit it. So yeah, it helped in a bunch of ways.